first question here. Do you think a deal between Sprint and T-Mobile actually gets the green light? And if so, do you think the divestiture of Boost will be enough to get that done?
Yeah, look, I've been saying this from day one that the merger between T-Mobile and Sprint has to happen purely because I don't think Sprint's in the financial state that it needs to. And we've been pushing very, very hard, both the DOJ and the FCC, to make sure that the low-income customers, the prepaid customers, are protected. And obviously, Boost and Metro PCS are the two brands that compete very hard in that market. So the divestiture of Boost is something that we've been calling for, and I absolutely think it's something that would make this merger work.
And you've been pretty outspoken about your desire to potentially bid for, maybe buy that Boost brand back. Devil's in the details here. Are you already having those types of conversations right now, preliminarily? And in terms of what that would look like, the company potentially still using Sprint Spectrum and network, is that the right way to go with this?
Well, it's interesting because we've obviously been talking to a lot of different people, and I think the devil is in the details. There's a lot of details that haven't come out. I mean, examples of, is this an exclusive wholesale deal? Is this certain people that can buy it? As an example, can American Mobile, the American carrier, TracFone, buy it, considering that they compete against Boost? So I think there's a lot of devil in the details of who actually is in the ownership of that business. But I think the second thing, which is really important, is who's going to police that? Who's going to police to make sure that the wholesale deal is good enough to allow the new Boost to be able to compete? And if they can't get a deal done, then what happens? So I think that there's a lot of incentive on the table for both sides, be it the purchaser and the seller, being the new T-Mobile, to make sure they get a deal done.
Peter, it sounds like you're framing this competition question around not just the number of independent networks, but around the MVNOs who are operating on those networks and what the economic terms are. Is that a perspective that you're pushing as being the important way to frame competition, not just the networks, but the players who are actually addressing the consumer?
Absolutely. And you can't just look at the divestiture as the only thing that's going to make this work. You've got to look at what does the divestiture look like? What does that wholesale look like? And in order for the MVNO, or for Boost to be able to compete, the new Boost to be able to compete, it's got to have a deal that allows it to do that. And I think that that's the part that's going to be critical here. And if they don't get that right, then it really doesn't matter. So I'm pushing very, very hard, both at the FCC and the DOJ, and especially at the FCC, who come out and made these remedies, that they need to police that. They need to make sure that the new T-Mobile doesn't do this just as a facade to get their merger through, but they generally are interested in ensuring that Boost can compete. Because if you can't do that, then it doesn't really matter. And I think that that's the critics are coming out right now and saying, hey, is this truly a divestiture that's going to work? Is this a remedy that's going to work? And the answer is yes, but only if that wholesale deal and the new owners have the ability to be able to compete directly against Metro PCS and directly against the new T-Mobile. And that can only be done through a wholesale deal, and a very good one.
And of course, Peter, we're having this conversation within the broader context of the rollout of 5G. If you owned Boost right now, would you continue to offer Huawei phones to customers in the U.S.?
I don't know whether they do continue to offer Huawei customers, but that's a bigger issue than just for me to be able to answer. I mean, that's obviously an issue that the government's looking at and everybody else is looking at. So, but there are plenty of OEMs out there in the marketplace today that offer very good handsets at low prices that allow you to compete in that marketplace. But, again, that's something that's way beyond where we are today.
Peter, for the prepaid market in particular, how important is it for 5G terms specifically and pricing to be included in the wholesale deal and the way the government, the DOJ, polices this? Is 5G that important to the prepaid market, and does that need to be stipulated now?
In the initial short term, the 5G isn't that important to the prepaid market. And in fact, I argue that for anyone who's got a smartphone, I'm not sure whether 5G is going to be the holy grail that everybody's pushing it out to be. When you move to the fixed broadband, well, I think if you look at your handset today and you ask, what would you like your 4G handset to do that it doesn't do today? I think the two things you would answer is, I'd like it to be cheaper and I'd like to have better coverage. I don't think speed is the single biggest issue that's driving your experience right now. I mean, you can hook up to the internet and get videos down pretty quickly. Are you going to download 25 movies in 3 seconds? No, because your phone memory won't take it, and you're not going to blow the memory on that. So I think that that's a little bit disingenuous to keep continuing to push the 5G into a smartphone. Now, if you start thinking about fixed broadband at home, the fixed wireless broadband market, which is where the prepaid low-income customers come in, then I think absolutely it has a role to play in that market. So, if you look at, I think it's about 25% of the prepaid customers, the African-American and Latino market, actually use their phone, particularly just to get onto the internet. 25% of them, they don't have fixed broadband into their home. So I think that can play a very big role. But I think in the short term, they should be mandating that all prepaid MVNOs can have full access to the network, be it 5G or 4G. But I don't think you're going to see a massive impact of people racing out there and changing their handsets to get what experience. What's the experience that's going to be different to the one that you get today on 4G? It's very, 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 very nominal.
Yeah, I like the reality check here on some of the promises that we told about. But just to be clear, you don't think it changes the overall dynamics of the handset itself, given the difference in what you need in memory in your hand?
No, I mean, again, I keep asking people, you've got a handset in your hand right now, and other than it being cheaper and having better coverage, what else are you looking for? I mean, it's very, very fast. The handsets today are very fast. They play back incredibly good video. You can stream live. So I'm sitting there going, well, what experience is 5G going to deliver overall? And you've got to remember, from a consumer's perspective, if they're going to be paying more for a handset and arguably potentially more for a 5G service, there has to be a compelling reason to do that. And the compelling reason isn't the hype that carriers continue to carry on with. It's about, well, what does this do to change my life? And if it doesn't change my life, well, guess what? I'm not going to pay more for it.